This program contains adult content.
Is there a God?
Big atheist.
Really?
What, am I an idiot? Come on.
That yes, it would be nice if you could throw your sins and your responsibilities on someone else. But it's not true.
It looks like far-left lunacy.
I don't believe that it's true that religion is moral or ethical.
You don't need to follow anybody!
It's not human intelligence!
If someone doesn't value logical consistency, what logical argument are you going to give them that will demonstrate that they should?
Hello and welcome to the Godless Rebelution. Today is Wednesday, March 2nd. This is episode 371. I'm Dan Ellis, and I'm tired. I'm tired of everything and all the things and junk and stuff, except for you two fine fellows, my co-hosts for this wonderful show, Mr. Ryan Duffy.
Yeah, I'm in pajamas today.
Awesome. I live my life in pajamas these days, unless I'm going out of the house somewhere. And Mr. Taylor Grin.
Oh, well, hello there.
Oh, well, hello there to you also. What is new with you gents since we spoke last? Let's go with Ryan first.
It's nice out, so I got to clean part of the garage today until I filled the garbage can up.
You got to? You were fortunate enough.
I want to get, because like in the winter, I've been doing more stuff down here in the basement than in the garage, making like smaller stuff.
Because the garage is fucking cold in the winter?
Because the garage is fucking cold, so it's kind of like I'm going to cut and sand when I need to cut and sand and get the fuck back inside.
Yeah.
Which means I haven't been cleaning up after myself. So it's very dusty. I filled I have a 5-gallon little tornado bucket thing that hooks to my shop vac. Mm-hmm. I filled that 5-gallon bucket up 4 times with sawdust.
Wow.
And you can't even tell I hit anything on the floor.
Wow.
So your garage is just a giant fire hazard is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's all settled on the ground. So I mean, if it's airborne, it's worse. It's settled.
Yeah.
More like a Soviet bakery.
Well,
I'll get it cleaned up.
Yeah. Well, good.
Get it ready for summer.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Mr. Taylor?
Oh man, I got a free ride to not a free ride, but I got a ride to the ER in an ambulance, so that was fun.
Oh yeah. Tell us all about that. What happened? Like, I know that you hurt your back again and were in horrible pain.
I had an injury a few years back, and it has been causing me some continual problems. The day after we recorded last week, I woke up in the morning and I was like having a bad time with my back, and I stood up to get out of bed, and I had the worst back spasm I have ever had in my entire life. Bad enough that I was literally just writhing on the ground and screaming in agony to the point where my brother just called an ambulance because nobody knew what to do.
Something really bad is going on, and I don't know what it is. I need somebody else here to evaluate the situation.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm actually not going to talk at all about anything that happened thereafter, because
you don't remember.
I have been told not to by my lawyer, and I will leave it at that.
Okay.
And we can talk off air, but I'm from that point on, I'm not going to make any public statements about that. But then once I got back home from the ER, multiple hours later, I basically spent like the last week pretty much, on the firmest surface in the house, which was our couch, on muscle relaxers and steroids and actually fairly low grade painkillers, because the intent was like to be aware of where the pain was, so I didn't like exert myself in a way that would re-injure. And I would say that today is probably the closest I've been to like sort of back to normal, but like not even, like I'm still super sore. It's just that there are no more spasms going on. And I've got an appointment with a primary care physician Friday, so we'll see. But it's possible I've got something like a slip disc or a herniated disc or something like that going on, and that it just flares up from time to time, and that's what's triggering the back spasms. But I'm hopefully going to be getting some better diagnostics going on in the near future to figure out what that is.
Yikes. I'm sorry, man. Back pain fucking sucks, and like there's no respite from it in a lot of cases. Like there's no position you can get in that makes it feel better. There's nothing you can fucking do.
Yeah. I mean, we're a poorly evolved or rather poorly designed, creature in that like everything centers on like about 4 inches worth of a cutout of our waist. And if anything goes wrong with any of those muscles, it's like all of it falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
And our S-shaped spine makes it, very vulnerable for those parts of our body to get super fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You just need one of them titanium spines.
Man.
Or adamantium.
Yeah, that sucks, man. When I was a younger man, in my 20s, I worked at a print shop, and like I worked in a like no shit. It wasn't like a Kinko's or something like that. We were making copies, like we're printing books and magazines and all that kind of shit, right? And so like in movies and on television, when you see the big web presses with big, the giant reels of paper going all through the different stacks and rollers and everything, and then the finished product coming out. I worked at a company that printed all kinds of books. Their primary customer was Franklin Covey back in the day when they did day planners and shit. And my job, being low man on the totem pole, working there, was that as things are printed and they come down the line and then they are ran up to this belt feeder that it just, lines up all of the printed pages vertically and then stacks them. And so my job was to take 2 blocks of wood, put a block of wood at one end, and then I had this metal separator that was on a slide that I could move back and forth on this table where all of the papers would gather up, and I would move that slide over, insert another block of wood, and then take a plastic baling line, run that across, and then step on a pedal to tighten that, to kind of shrink wrap it together a little bit. And then I'd take these, 50 to 80 pound bundles of printed paper and move them over onto pallet to be
for 8 hours a day.
Yeah. To be run off to, to the warehouse. And just one day after working there for however long, I picked up a bundle, and instead of shifting my feet, I just twisted with my back and went to set it down, and I was fucking done. I had to sleep on the floor, on the floor with nothing under me except carpet, and then hope that there wasn't too much padding for close to a year, I believe. And because it was that was the only place where I could get any kind of relief at all. And it was just having the top of my ass on the hard ground and straightening my spine a little bit that offered the most relief. But God, that was 6 months to a year of just fucking torturous pain, man. Awful.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, man. That sucks.
Yeah, no, it's no bueno. And it seems like it's happening more frequently, so I'm going to try and figure out what it is. But, I had the same thing happen about the same time last year. Just before I went and I took my trip out to Utah. So about 11 months ago. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully they can get it figured out for you, and then that won't be an issue going forward.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. There's not a whole lot new with me. I got the new car, which is still so much fun. I got to drive it yesterday for an extended period. I drove it to the golf course and back, and, it's 45-ish miles away from home. And so that was fun. It was the first round of golf of the year. So it went about as well as expected. Could have been better. I started off with a 8 and then a 9 on a par 4 and a par 5. Shot a 47 overall. So, 9 of those extra shots were all taken on the first 2 holes because I hadn't swung a club since October. But the rest of the round went pretty well. I was using my new electric robotic cart, my remote control thing. And that, because I hadn't used that for a little while, I was out of practice with using that and had 3 different yard sales throughout navigating it around the course. The first one being like right off of the fucking T block on number 1. And my cart went down a hill, got a little sideways, and then started wobbling and tipped over, and all of my clubs came out. I had left my top pocket open with balls and tees and everything. That fucking went everywhere. My water, my beer. That took me a little while. And then I think being frustrated with that and trying to find my ball is what led to having a horrible score on the second hole. But it all worked out pretty well.
Excuses.
Yeah. Well, and then like it was just like I felt so unprepared. Like I just felt like I was rushing around everywhere trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Like I dropped my rangefinder on the very first hole. Didn't have that for the rest of the round. Finally, when we finished up, and I did have some great shots and great holes after the first 2, but then when we finished up, I had to grab an actual driving cart to drive down to see if I could find my rangefinder. I was able to locate it, but then driving back up to the clubhouse, the cart that I had hopped on outside the clubhouse, that the little light was blinking for the battery died coming up the fucking hill. So, well, it didn't die entirely, but like I could have crawled on my hands and knees faster back up to the clubhouse because the first hole at Valley View is this really steep hill. Anyway, it took me forever to get back up to the clubhouse, but I did retrieve my rangefinder. And then on the way home, it was the weirdest fucking thing. I don't know what this dude's problem was. I'm just minding my own fucking business, and out of nowhere, this dude comes flying up on my ass and then gets right next to me, starts honking his horn, and he's flipping me off and everything. And I'm like, I'm looking around like, are you talking to me? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Did you forget what your license plate says?
I don't even have, that's just it. It's the new car. All it has is the paper tag.
Oh shit. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind then. I was going to go. I thought maybe you would have had to change over real quick or something, but.
Well, that was my first thought was like, oh, he must have seen my license plate. And then I thought, oh shit, no, I don't even have license plates on this. It's the brand new fucking car. Which
I don't know what this fucker's excuse was.
Yeah, which made it all the more baffling. Like, what the fuck? Like, maybe he just hates Genesis vehicles, or maybe somebody he knows has the same car in the same color, which would be really wild because there's so few of them available.
Well, did you check to make sure your golf clubs made it home with you?
They did. Yeah. Well, that was it too. Like
on top of the car.
Well, yeah. Like at first,
yard sale on the freeway.
Well, yeah. At first, like he started flipping me off and everything, and I thought, well, what? Like at first, I didn't know if it was even directed at me, and then when it was clear that it was directed at me, I thought, well, is it somebody I know and they're just fucking with me? Like, because I haven't done anything and it wasn't somebody I knew. And so then we're just driving along and he kept doing that. Like he'd zoom up and get ahead of me and then he'd slow down and flip me off as I went past. And then he'd get behind me and then he'd get right on my ass. And he gets next to me and he's like, he sticks his arm out the window and he's motioning for me to pull over. And I'm just like, I just started laughing at him even more. I'm like
no.
Do you want me to pull over so that I can beat the shit out of you in front of everybody? Like, I've got other shit to do, man. I got to get home and do some more work. So I just kept driving and he took the next exit and it was like, I came home and I told Tracy all about it because I was just like baffled about what the fuck is going on with this guy. Like, and I still, like, I thought about it, you know, the rest of the night and a few times throughout the day today. And it's just like, I have no idea what this dude's problem was. Like I didn't cut anybody off. I didn't, get on anybody's ass.
And there probably wasn't another car like yours anywhere near.
No, yeah. I'm still at a complete loss as to what the hell was going on. But it was the weirdest thing. And then I thought for sure, like, well, if I pull over and I get out of the car, he's probably going to apologize because I'm a large fellow and a lot of people find my just physical size a little intimidating. I scare a lot of people unintentionally. And yeah, it was just weird.
That's because some people fear gingers.
Because we have no soul. So
yep.
There's
like, I can't do anything to that guy. He's got no soul. How the fuck am I going to knock him down a peg?
But there's been a bunch of shit in the news, man, that we're going to talk about when we get back from this little break.
Hello, my name is Tony from the God Chat podcast. It's the podcast where I chat to the creator of the universe, God. It's a podcast where we aim to blend humour and philosophy, or humosophy as some people are calling it. In reality, Each episode is 20 minutes of poorly curated nonsense, and you probably won't enjoy it. Oh, and by the way, you're listening to the Godless Rebelution podcast.
Does that make sense, Tony? Does it?
Oh, fuck off, God. God Chat with God and Tony.
But I'm not going to have Nazism called secularism, if you don't mind. I'm a prisoner of what I know here. I know too much about it. I've read Mein Kampf, for example, which most people have not, where Hitler says several times, starting very early on, that he's doing God's work in exterminating the Jews. He went on saying that. The Vatican was shown the book. In those days, they would ban any book they didn't like the look of. They were one of the great book banning organizations in the world. They didn't ban the book that was written by the leader who made his first political treaty in Germany with them and their church, and outside Germany between his dictatorship and the Vatican. If you wanted to take your oath, well, you didn't have to want to, you had to, if you were in the German army and the SS, to take your oath to the Führer, which was compulsory. You took it like this: I swear by Almighty God, undying fealty. Around your belt, if you were a soldier in the Nazi army, you had to wear a buckle that said Gott mit uns, the German for God on our side.
Thank you to everybody who has rated the show on iTunes and Stitcher and are following us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And to all our Patreon patrons, you make the show possible.
So some shit has gone down in our last episode. In that episode, we were talking about, will he or won't we, and is Ukraine in actual danger, because it sure fucking looked like it, and Putin was rattling some sabers, and then some people were saying, oh, it's no big deal. Other people's were like, no, it's a big fucking deal. And it turns out that, yes, indeed, the people on the big fucking deal side of the fence were absolutely correct.
We get to have a Taylor was wrong. I in our last episode gave a most likely and a most dangerous assessment. I figured the most likely would be that they would kind of capture the regions they'd already captured, as well as a belt that goes from the Donbass region down to Crimea, and probably wouldn't invade any further, and would use the threat of their troops built up to capture those regions. The most dangerous being what actually happened. And Ryan was right. He thought that the most dangerous would be what happened. So, yeah.
See, I can be an analyst.
No, I mean, it's something that we've talked on and off the show about. I've got a propensity to go towards more conservative estimates. And hedge my bets. And it's one of those things that the same thing happened with January 6th, where I figured that things would be not quite as extreme as they turned out being.
Well, I don't think any of us expected how extreme that actually went.
Well, there were people who did, though. Andrew Seidel, for example, can point to previous events that happened in December 14th, for example, that showed what was going to happen, right? So if other people made the right assessment, I should have been able to make the right assessment. And it's one of those things where I look at, how do I weigh my, basically risk aversion or change aversion when I'm looking at whether or not people make decisions. Mm-hmm. And I just need to adjust that upward. It's a problem that some analysts have. It's one that I suffer from, and it's something that I've been trying to work on, because that's what good analysts do, is identify where their thinking is not optimal and adjust those inherent biases.
Well, I would say, looking at what Putin has done so far, he has made the wrong decisions militarily.
Oh, yeah.
And he would have been much better off taking the route you were talking about, getting a stronghold in a certain area and then try to move off of that area. And they're kind of taking the not even like a blitzkrieg effect. They're trying to poke holes in Ukraine, and it's not going well.
It would have been a blitzkrieg type attack if he had properly stacked echelons. The way that blitzkriegs work is you have multiple echelons of armored units that can move at a very quick rate, and you don't even necessarily stop and fight. You'll just blow through fighting positions and capture as deep into the territory as you can. And you've got your second and third and sometimes fourth echelons behind you that will follow on, with a delay and capture those places And so you've almost set up like kind of a traveling wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then each of those subsequent echelons is there to protect supply lines that are able to provide supplies to the tip of the spear. And now we're hearing reports from the press that the like 40 kilometer or 40 mile, I think it's 40 mile long road right now from Belarus to Kiev is filled with like 3 deep of tanks that don't have food or water or gas. We're getting reports of like Russian soldiers who are giving up, and it's the first time they've eaten in 3 days, or rations that are that were expired back in 2015.
Mm-hmm. So rations that had expired 4 or 5 years ago or longer, or their food was spoiled. They're running out of fuel for their vehicles. Some of them, I mean, and this is all according to media reports, but like it's not a single sourced media report. Like it's
right.
A broad swath of media establishments are reporting all of these things, that they're running out of fuel. Their morale is really low, that some are just surrendering because they didn't think that they were ever going to invade Ukraine. They thought that they were on a training mission. Yeah. That it was just an exercise and then even those that thought that they may invade, figured they would be welcomed, much like, Bush said the U.S. would be as liberators, that they would be welcome. No. Yeah. And it's all gone sideways on them. And there's reports of them, like I said, just abandoning, giving up their vehicles and surrendering, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is they didn't want to be firing on people that they have a fairly close relationship with. A lot of the soldiers have friends and family in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Or shooting at people who are defenseless. It's like, I'm not going to open fire on these people, which is why I saw one today where like the town went out and just stood in the road in front of where that nuclear reactor is, that power plant. And they just stood in the road, said no. And the tanks didn't come through. Like, all right, we'll turn around.
What are you going to do? Run over all of us?
Reports in Belarus the same way, that people are starting to sabotage railways and roads in Belarus.
Well, because I had seen that in northern Ukraine, that the people there had already sabotaged the railroads so they couldn't bring their resupply trains in, which I guess from looking at all the stuff, that's the common way Russia was planning to resupply troops, was by rail. And now that rail's being knocked out, you can't get fuel and food and ammo to them. And I also call bullshit on Russia saying they have air superiority, because I thought it was funny as fuck that the day Russia puts out the thing saying we have achieved air superiority, Ukraine releases a video of all their fucking hits for their drone. It's like they got this slow ass drone and it's destroying your convoys right now.
Well, in my understanding, that Turkish drone is a killer. They're
going to sell a lot of them after this.
And it's got a low profile.
Yeah, they're going to sell a lot, but it's slow, which should make
slow
it
can be
easy,
good,
but it should still be a semi-easy target for a fighter to take out, as long as it's giving a heat signature.
The problem with slow is that if it's too slow, fighters will overshoot it, and it's hard to get a target lock. Yeah. And on the off chance that we've got anyone in those regions listening to us, which is a very long chance, be careful if you're like, say, breaking down railroad ties. They're under a lot of pressure and they'll pop if you were to say cut them out, right? Because they can be under tons of shear pressure. So if they were to be, say, cut out of their like moorings, they'll pop up. Yep. And then same Molotov cocktails, right? Don't take cocktail advice from a podcast, but wrap the cloth around the neck, seal it up so you don't get yourself with the liquid propellant when you throw it.
There was the one video where they're doing drive-by Molotovs on the convoy,
and the woman had her arm caught on fire.
Yeah, because when she threw it, the fuel was coming out and she caught her arm on. She looked like she put it out, so she was okay. But yeah, you avoid that if you don't leave the top open.
Yeah. Cork that thing up. Yeah. So, because I mean, it splashes, it'll catch all the same. A little bit of styrofoam helps too,
Well, that's how you make other things too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the styrofoam makes it sticky, right?
Yeah, it makes it jelly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I learned that the wrong way as a young kid.
Oh yeah.
put some fuel into a styrofoam cup to go throw it on a fire, and I poured it in. It just went, it just melted in my hand. Like,
oh, I'm glad you're okay. That could have been catastrophic.
I wasn't by the fire. I was going to like pour some in the styrofoam cup and chuck it into the campfire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just melted the stuff.
You almost lost a hand there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I saw a video earlier today of like what must have been just a neighborhood worth of people under an overhang. And I mean, you had kids funneling styrofoam into glasses and then handing those off to adults who would fill them up with gasoline. And I mean, they had like milk crates,
factory
over
going.
milk crates. Yeah. Of just assembling Molotovs.
There was, it was like a 60 or 70-year-old man they were interviewing on the street, and they're asking like, what are you still doing here? You could have left. You could have, fled. He's like, no, I want to fight. It's like, I asked for a gun, but they told me I'm too old for a gun. So I got my Molotov cocktails ready. Like, Russia did not expect this. Russia did not expect to have people of every age and different diversities in their culture saying, no, we love Ukraine and we're going to fight the fucking death for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that Ukraine has many, many sunflowers in their fields this summer.
They're going to have a new export.
That was the greatest single threat that I think I've ever heard in my life. The old lady walking up to a Russian soldier telling him that he should put sunflower seeds in his pocket.
Yep.
So that they will grow out of his dead body when he dies here. Yeah.
Now, I wonder if that has cultural significance, because there's a movie, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie right now, but the guy goes to Ukraine. He's in Odessa and he's traveling through Ukraine trying to find a relative of his. And before he gets to her house, it's just this giant field of sunflowers. And he's walking through it and he gets to the house, and she was a survivor of the Holocaust in Ukraine. And she grew all those flowers for the people that died.
Well, the sunflower is Ukraine's national flower.
Oh, is it? Okay, maybe that's also why she did it in the movie too. Like, I didn't understand but then her saying that too, I was like, does that have a significance there? I'm like, the lady that survived the Holocaust grew a whole fields full of sunflowers. And
yeah, it'd be interesting.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, like I know that the sunflower is their national flower, but I haven't read or looked at anything to figure out why that's their national flower. Like I'm guessing there's an interesting story behind that somewhere.
Well, I mean, it's a tasty flower. I like sunflower seeds.
They're pretty good. I like them too. And it's interesting to me how many conservative bullshit talking points that they've gone over for the past about 2 years, 2 to 3 years about Ukraine. When it first came out that Trump was withholding aid from Ukraine in order to extract some cooperation from Zelensky. Yeah. In order to basically, to put the spurs to Zelensky to do his bidding, that, he was going to withhold financial aid from Ukraine until he didn't even want Zelensky to actually do anything, but to just announce that they were going to investigate Hunter Biden. And that was the second time that Trump was impeached. No, the first time. Sorry.
No, the first time.
Yeah, the first time he was impeached was over that, was withholding military aid to Ukraine until they would at least announce that they were going to investigate Hunter Biden. And, moving from that, and then all of the conservatives, why should we care about this little pissant country that, nobody really cares about, that is really just, Russia light, that they're all just a bunch of communist stooges anyway, run by, somebody who was a comedian and an actor and doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. It's like, well, Ronald Reagan,
our former president, or the president. What are you talking about?
who would elect an actor as a president? Yeah.
Ronald Reagan
twice
and Donald Trump were both actor-ishes. Like, Reagan for sure was an actor. Trump is
yes.
Trump acts like a human being, so I guess that kind of counts. Yeah.
He has his trouble is that smiling part.
Yeah, he's just not a very good actor. But knowing that they tried to withhold that, and then like I said, the conservative talking points of, oh, well, Zelensky's just a, former actor, former comedian. He's not to be taken seriously. That dude has stones, man.
Fuck yes.
Like, just seeing some of the interviews of him or some of the press releases that are coming out of his administration where, he tells people, we need your help. We don't need prayers. We need money for ammunition. We need weapons to help repel this invading force. And no, I'm not going to leave my country. This is my country. This may be the last time that you see me alive because I'm going to be here and we're going to do everything we can. We're going to fight tooth and nail to repel them.
Yeah. I mean, they're reporting that they stopped an assassination by a Chechnyan kill squad earlier today.
What? I hadn't heard anything about that.
Not just stopped it, but took out the entire squad.
Yes, also true. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about that. I've been busy with what tell me more about this.
There's not much more to tell. A group of like Chechnyan mercenaries who are being led by a guy who is described as a warlord, because apparently Chechnya is just fucking wild. Went in, was planning to kill Zelensky. Somehow they got tipped off. Don't know how that could have happened. And they caught them and executed them because they weren't uniformed soldiers of war. Ukraine was like, well, guess what you don't get.
I did see the Ukrainian special forces had to walk back a comment they made today. Today they announced at one point, they said, if you are part of the artillery divisions that are shelling our civilian areas, you will not be taken POW.
Cool. Yeah.
And they had to walk that comment back like, okay, we'll take you POW. Like, we won't just kill you in the street. We want to fucking kill you in the street, but we're told we can't. Right. It's like the last thing we need is to commit war crimes when at least right now Russia is being investigated for war crimes.
Yeah, I'd seen reports that they're being accused of using cluster munitions.
Their flamethrower, their thermobaric
missiles, and I like that's something that's important. Like, war is terrible, and this may require like a trigger warning, like potentially fast forward a minute of this show. World War Z, the book by Max Brooks, has a fantastic description of thermobaric weapons because like they're described as being used in the book. What they do is they make an extremely high temperature explosion that it incinerates the air.
Yeah.
And it uses the air in its own explosion radius to amplify its own explosion radius. Like it burns at a temperature so high that it vaporizes the O2, which allows it to explode more, right? More than the initial fuel of the explosive itself. And then when that explosion ceases, there's no more air there because that air has been used for the explosion. So it creates a vacuum. And there's a negative pressure wave that happens. So first there's a concussive blast out, then a negative pressure wave back in, which has, use your Isaac Newton, roughly the same force as the concussive blast that went out in the first place to fill that vacuum. So and it's strong enough to like suck organs out of a mouth.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. You basically just got put into a vacuum chamber.
Yeah.
So if I understand, I was watching one thing where they're talking about the ones the Russians, but it's a 2-part blast they use for there. So the first detonation, it aerosolizes a fuel that spreads out into the air. And then a second charge goes off, just lighting the atmosphere on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are war crime weapons. Like there is not a legal way to use a thermobaric weapon in a wartime scenario.
I don't think we even use thermobaric weapons to get people out of caves in Afghanistan. We bombed the shit out of them.
Don't quote me on this. I'll look it up after the show. If I'm wrong, someone email us. I believe that the mother of all bombs
is a thermobaric
weapon. And I believe that we used it once early in the Trump administration in Afghanistan. But I believe that it was used not for like the vacuum effect, but just to cause a collapse in like tunnel systems. Like basically it was exploded outside of a mountain to cause caves inside the mountains to collapse, which is still not nice.
No.
But That's my only. Well, that's the only wartime use I can think of America using a thermobaric weapon.
Because what's the whole purpose of those weapons? If you drop one of those outside of, say, in a residential area, outside of an apartment complex, if a normal weapon will destroy walls and damage the concrete and shoot shrapnel, but if you're protected inside there, you don't get that effect. A thermobaric weapon sucks the air out of the building. So you don't have protection from a shelter or a bunker or anything. It's sucking the air literally out of the building.
Yeah.
I'm Bryce Barkenagel. Have you ever wondered if Joseph Smith was drugging the early Mormons? Turns out it might be possible when you have a fantastic congregation that is witnessing angels floating around in the rafters and think that the temple is on fire and they're running out in the snow and writhing around on the ground naked. Yeah, as it turns out, drugs might be the best explanation. Be sure to check out my Sunstone Symposium presentation on the Joseph Smith entheogen theory by punching that into any YouTube browser. And thank you so much for checking that out, and be sure to check out the Naked Mormonism podcast. This is the Godless Rebelution.
And when Trump was asked on Friday about what had happened in that meeting, this was his response.
I don't remember much about that meeting. It was a very unimportant meeting, took place a long time. Don't remember much about it.
Oh, you don't remember. That is convenient, although it's slightly undercut by one of Trump's favorite boasts.
People know me for my memory. It's called, like, up here, and it's called memory, and it's called other things.
I'm fortunate that I have a good memory.
I have a good memory. I have, like, a good memory. I have a very good memory. I have a good memory, like a great memory. I have a great memory. One of the great memories of all time.
Yeah, and there is just no way to reconcile those two positions, although Trump has actually tried in the past, because when he was asked during a deposition in 2015 about claiming that he had one of the world's great memories, he said, and I quote, "I don't remember saying that. As good as my memory is, I don't remember that, but I have a good memory."
If you have questions, comments, concerns, compliments, corrections, criticisms, or concepts for content, contact the show via email at godlessrebelution@gmail.com, by text or voicemail at 330-81-REBEL, or Twitter the Twatter at TGR Podcast. Thank you!
One of the things that I thought that the Biden administration is not getting enough kudos or accolades for is the way that they've handled this, the way that they handled the entire situation running up to Russia actually invading, where they were trying to tell, trying to tell the world, this is the intelligence that we've got. And this is intelligence coming from all of the agencies that Trump, throughout his presidency, shat on repeatedly. Mm-hmm. He denigrated the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all of our intelligence agencies. He tried to convince everybody we're fucking awful and could give no good, actionable, workable intelligence about anything. That they were all corrupt. They were all out to get him. They all had their own agendas. I'm not saying that that's necessarily entirely wrong, but that he tried to demonize all of our intelligence agencies that were used to great effect and accuracy in predicting what Putin was going to do.
Yeah. Well, not only, you also got to remember that when Putin and Trump were buddies, and apparently Trump still knows exactly what Putin's thinking. He's a great man. I know him better than some people in this room.
He's very savvy, very, very intelligent.
He was actively trying to defund NATO, defund the UN, get the US out of it, and basically turn the UN and NATO into shambles, which is exactly what fucking Putin wants. Which is why I love right now we see NATO and the UN unifying behind each other.
Well, I would say NATO and the EU. The UN is kind of nutless, but
I mean, that's so. Even though we see all the stuff coming out from the UN, you're right. The UN are non-binding agreements. It's basically all of us saying, it's all them saying, we think you're a piece of shit. It's like, okay, you think I'm a piece of shit, whatever. You can't do anything about it.
But just seeing the unity of the sanctions that are happening right now. I mean, everyone is pulled out of Russia. You know, major oil companies, movies, cars, planes. Like if it's an industry, they're pulling out of Russia. It's wild to watch.
I think half of it's optics. Like, well, we don't want to be there. We can be there. We can still go there and make money. But the optics of this will look horrible if we don't get out before we're forced to get out.
There's negative optics if you stay in. There's also free PR if you get out.
Get out. Even though I can't remember how many people I heard the statistic earlier today on NPR of how many people actually live in Russia for the markets for like Apple. All Apple products were pulled. They're like, that's a huge market for Apple. And they're like, they weren't told to get out, but they're like, yeah, we're out. Done.
Right.
I'm like, good for you. Fucking A, taking the right side.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch. And that's why there have been people saying like, oh, well, maybe this will motivate, China to attack Taiwan. And I think quite the opposite. I think that this is also the Western world. Yeah. Saying, hey, here's what happens. Like, because there's shit. What was I'm probably conflating a couple of things. I'm almost certainly conflating a couple of things, but I feel like at some point I read that like no two countries with a McDonald's have ever gone to war with each other,
I've heard that too, but there's McDonald's are fucking everywhere.
Oh no, I know. But like, it's kind of a tongue in cheek thing.
Yeah.
But to think about it in terms of like, this is what the Marshall Plan was supposed to do. This is what NATO was supposed to do. This is what America's entire post-World War II strategy was supposed to do, which is say, hey, we may not agree with what each other does, but like we do agree on Enlightenment values, on general liberalism and representative democracy, and not going to war with each other. And as long as we don't go to war with each other, like we'll find ways to like politely disagree. And fucking God help you, right? If you do fuck with us, because we'll be a united front. And this is the first time that's ever been tested in a real strategic way. We enacted Article 5 when 9/11 happened, but like Iraq and Afghanistan were, from like a standard military perspective, easily rolled over. We just couldn't handle the insurgency part of it, right? But for an actual force on force, like superpower fight, I will say this, like, depending on what happens with Putin in the next few months, like, I think that we'll probably look back on this as the beginning of World War III. And I think that the idea of what war is will change in the same way that we recognize that war changed between like the American Civil War and World War I. Like trench warfare changed what war was like. People were used to, hey, we're going to have some battles at these certain theaters, and then, somebody will win and they'll get routed and they'll move and the battle lines will change, where instead World War I was just, fighting over the same 300
just
meters
slog
of
it
fucking
out.
land for 2 years,
Yeah, there's a reason we use the term entrenched.
Yeah. And I think that the economic and internet and communicative aspects of the 21st century are as significant a change to warfare as trench warfare and automatic weapons and biplanes were for World War I. And I really do think that like 20 years from now, when kids are reading history books, they'll see this as the opening salvo of World War III. And it will be described in part as an economic war, where economic warfare was one of the weapons wielded by most of the rest of the world against Russia.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're knocking Russia back 50 years right now.
Yeah.
Economically.
Well, it's interesting and so heartening to see that across the board, people are lining up and condemning Russia. Putin is being made a pariah. There's at this point, there's no way for him to come back from this, which is both good and fucking terrifying at the same time, because
what's he going to do?
Yeah. When he comes to the realization that he's either got to go balls to the wall or be deposed and removed from power, I think everybody can figure out what he's going to do, right? It's going to be, he's going to adopt the line of, well, if you haven't succeeded by using force, you haven't used enough force. Right. And it's going to get a lot worse.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's it.
I like what the Ukrainian diplomat said in the speech to the UN. He said that Putin should just skip to the part that his counterpart in Berlin did in May of 1945.
I did not hear that.
That was fucking awesome.
Yeah. But no, I mean, real talk. I think that I can't remember if I said this in the previous episode, but Putin is a kleptocrat. Putin has made his rulership persistent by enriching and creating dirt on a class of oligarchs who control the economies of Russia. And by keeping them enriched and the wheels greased for their industries, they keep him in power, right? And now that their economy is trashed, he will have outlived his usefulness for those oligarchs, right? And on the one hand, it is a powerful tool to have control over the apparatus of your intelligence agency, the FSB, your military forces, et cetera, right? That Putin has. But never doubt the power of money, right?
Yeah.
And if all of the rest of the oligarchs are not in favor of what Putin's doing to their wealth, I think that's going to speak pretty loudly. And I think that will create opportunities.
Yeah, I don't doubt that you're right there. I don't think that it's going to be a powerful enough motivator. I mean, he sits atop the heap of the oligarchs, right? Like, I don't know if you saw the bit on John Oliver where he showed video of, and I can't even remember, it was someone in Putin's, it's equivalent to our, the administration's cabinet. And it was somebody in Putin's cabinet, stood up and expressed a concern, and Putin basically dressed him down in front of everybody. And this guy in public, in this open environment of talking things out, completely acquiesced and backed down and tucked his tail between his legs and basically started groveling as Putin was dressing him down in front of everybody else. And I think he wields enough power that people are still just fucking terrified of him and what he will do, because it's not much of a secret that he just kills his political enemies. That's what happens.
Right.
Which is why they need to kill him.
I mean, I guess where I'm coming from with my calculus is that there were multiple in-government assassination attempts against Hitler. Like there were multiple Nazis who tried to assassinate Hitler, right? And Hitler led an ideology, right? People believed in Nazism. Not all of them, right? Some of them were pragmatic. Some of them just wanted power. But, a lot of the top ranking Nazis believed in Nazism, right? Putin does not have that ideological power, which I think makes the risk of pragmatic decision making higher, right? It puts everyone on more of a game theory level of thinking rather than a irrational level of thinking. Is where I'm coming from thinking that.
I think that what ultimately will lead to Putin's demise is, aside from the things that he's doing, is that his motivation seems to be that he wants to improve Russia, right? That he wants people to love him. He wants to be known as this great leader, historically speaking. I've seen a bunch of reports that say that it seems like there's something wrong with him. Something has definitely changed, right? His emotions are running a lot higher and hotter. He's short-tempered. And there's been speculation that he may have learned that he has some incurable mortal disease or affliction that has spurred him to want to cement a legacy as this great leader before he dies, and
unifying the Russian Union back together.
Yeah.
I've also heard reports that he's got something, almost like me, that he's got really bad back problems and has been taking a lot of steroids and painkillers to deal with it. And that like steroids especially will fuck with your thought process. And people have spoken to like that his face has gotten puffier. He's looking more waterlogged, which is a potential consequence of that kind of treatment. But even though I've literally taken classes on that, I don't want to speculate too much into his thought patterns. Because I think better assessments can be made on multiple people's actions rather than an individual's actions, right? Like I tend to, there are two different views of history, one that is top down and one that is bottom up. And I tend to agree with the bottom up side that like big changes happen because of what lots of people do that coalesce into general action rather than what leaders do flowing down onto the masses. And leaders are important, but I think that it's important to consider non-leaders. But
I think the best leaders are the ones who can see that tide of change brewing beneath them and can channel that into a productive arena, right?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine about Boris Johnson earlier today, who I don't think is anywhere close to as stupid as people think he is. I think
he plays the
man.
stupid man. Yeah.
Yeah. But he knows how to challenge those or channel those, tides of change.
Mm-hmm. He's really effective at doing that. I am growing increasingly concerned, and we've seen a ratcheting up of violence recently. There's been reports of bombings in, major metropolitan areas within Ukraine.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are bombings of
schools and hospitals and maternity wards and
it's bad. I think they're reporting something like 6,000 civilian deaths at this point.
And I think Putin can see the writing on the wall that his days are numbered, and that the people, the longer this goes on and the longer Ukraine can hold out, the more people are turning against him, and the more sanctions are being ratcheted up, the more countries are realizing that they need to align. Not even countries, fucking global corporations are now stepping into the fray. Like fucking ExxonMobil and BP and a bunch of other oil companies and major corporations, Apple, Microsoft, they're all now aligning as well against Russia and doing what they can to help support keeping Putin in place and stymieing his efforts as much as possible. Yeah. And I think
Exxon gave up a 20% share in a Russian oil company. It's like, that's a lot of money when you're that big of a company.
Yeah.
That's another one of those things where it's important to consider. Russia has lots of oil. Russia is an oil-based country, economy. They're terrible at drilling oil. If it's anything more complex than sticking a straw in the ground and sucking, they need to bring outside expertise. And that's why groups like, Exxon and BP
do so much work
with, they come in and they bring actual geological engineers to do advanced oil drilling processes. And without those people, Russia literally doesn't have the scientists to make that happen.
Yeah. I heard someone say Russia's got a lot of gold, so they can still survive. I'm like, who are they going to sell it to?
Right.
What good is that gold when you're not allowed to sell it on any fucking market? It's a worthless rock now.
It's the same thing that happens with like fucking conservatives and libertarians, where they're like, "Oh, the dollar evaluation is going to go down. I'm gonna go and put all of my money in gold so that I'll have something to barter with." And it's like, well,
I can't eat that or shoot it. So what the fuck do I want to do with it?
Right. If Hurricane Katrina Mark II happens, I'm going to say, "Hey, do you have any bread? I don't care about gold."
Yeah. When the shit hits the fan, it's now a shiny rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can this do anything for me other than look pretty on a desk somewhere?
Yeah. Make some jewelry. No one's going to want to buy it because I can't fucking eat it or shoot it.
Right. If I can't eat it, shoot it, or put it on my body to keep warm,
I don't need it.
Yeah. And it's just interesting to me to see all of the ways in which what Trump did for the 4 years of his presidency perfectly aligned with Putin's ambitions.
Yeah.
Trying to destroy NATO, trying to destroy the EU, trying to destroy all of American institutions, not just our intelligence agencies, but all of the agencies that help run our government. And then even after he's in office, even after he's out of office, just how much he's trying to deep throat Putin and stay on his good side. Like,
and just in case anyone else has friends like me, I have had a buddy who is a libertarian that like, I'm still friends with him because he and I are in the same professional industry and I maintain, contacts that way. And then because I'm hoping that one day maybe like I'll say something that snaps him out of it, but he's like a super libertarian, right? And he was posting memes last week about how Tulsi Gabbard should have been president for something. And again, he and I work in the same industry, right? And he works in DC. And I showed him tweets by Tulsi Gabbard that were basically supporting the Russian position, opposing the Ukrainian position. And he has shut the fuck up about Tulsi Gabbard. I have not seen him say a single thing in support of her since then.
Good, because she's a shitty fucking person, man.
Yeah.
Don't let people start repeating the thing right now where they say, well, Putin didn't invade when Trump was in office because he knew Trump was strong. So he's only doing it now because Biden's weak. I'm like, okay, last I checked, he's invading Ukraine, not the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done more than Trump ever would have fucking done as far as sanctions go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
I don't think he's weak at all.
But, we were worried we weren't going to have enough stuff to talk about, and we blitzed through a whole ass episode.
Yeah, that was quick.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That was.
I could talk to you guys.
I'd love to keep going, but I need to lay down again. So I think it might be time for us to thank our patrons.
Yep. I think you are absolutely correct because they help keep the show going, and we appreciate and love you all. Thank you so much for your patronage of the show.
And we've said that we're actually making this an LLC, right? On air?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we did. Yeah. It's almost official.
Almost.
It's very close to official.
Yeah. We're drawing ever nearer to that LLC line. of having to fork over.
You can't take our money.
Yeah, of having to fork over a not insignificant amount of fundage in order to get that going. But we have come to the end of the show. Before we go, we should thank our Patreon supporters. I don't know why I'm repeating myself. I'll have to edit this more because I did that. Let's go. Let's read through that list of amazing patrons.
All right.
Let's have you start it off, Ryan.
That would be the two skeptical chaps.
A noble spirit embiggens the smallest man, a perfectly cromulent statement.
Alan Firth.
All hail Peanut Buttra.
Darwin is coming.
Doug Willoughby.
Hunter Grin.
Is it just me, or are these patrons amazing?
Yeah.
John McCullough.
Ollie Olson.
Sinead Duffy.
Steve Cuno.
Steven Andrews.
Theodore Sellen.
Tiffany Hudson.
Vanessa.
Corey Ebert.
Don't be a Richard.
Freethinker 215.
Good news, everyone.
Oh, Joe DiMaggio is back. So when they do the 20 episodes, they will have the voice of Bender.
Bender's back.
Bender is back, baby. All right.
For more hookers and blow.
We are at Jeff Peterson.
Jeremy Goodson.
Jonathan.
Marvin Draken.
Matthew Sanders.
Megan Mitchell.
Not a fucking gymnast.
Updog Programmer.
Utah Outcasts.
Wesley Aaron.
Zeus 9SO.
Janet Uter.
Purple Dragon.
Sarah Segovia.
Savita Kuna.
Socialized Healthcare saved my life.
Tim Jacobson.
Trisha Weir.
James.
And Waylon Smithers want you to please support the Trevor Project.
Nice. I like that one. That was a good pick, Raji.
And one of these things, this is a little off the cuff, but for those of you who are our higher end Patreon supporters, if there are ideas that you have from us, like that you would like to get more value out of the show, whether that's video things like what Ryan's been working on, or deeper dive episodes, or I don't know what, autographed books, something like that shit. Please let us know what we can do to give you more of what we're doing, because we want to make sure that you're, getting the best of us. We've been really busy as shit. I'm probably about to have some more time coming up here soon. So anything we can do to add value, let us know.
We should be jumping into some more deep dives here soon, though.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Should be a lot of fun. Speaking of deep dives, I'm going to deep dive back into work.
Oh, that sucks. My butt's grumbling.
I'm going to rest on my couch for a while. This hour sitting upright has taken a toll.
Hope you get feeling better soon, man.
Yeah, thanks. Well,
I'm an unhappy kitty.
Sorry. Let me take care of that real quick.